5 Live Formula One.
Welcome to Las Vegas. The grid is set for the Grand Prix after an interrupted qualifying session, and it was George Russell in the Mercedes who took pole position under the lights along the famous iconic strip. And behind him, it was Carlos Sainz in P2 for Ferrari, and a surprise finish for Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, backing up that incredible performance last time out in Sao Paulo with P3. I'm Rosanna Tennant, and with me to dissect everything we saw in that qualifying session is our lead commentator, Harry Benjamin, and former W Series driver, Alice Powell. There was an interruption, Harry. It slightly interrupted the momentum of the qualifying session, but George Russell, so consistent the whole way through this weekend, right at the top of the timesheets, and there he does it. Pole position for the British driver.
We got some interruption, but sadly it never made it to air, your lovely singing, which kept us going in that interruption, in the build-up to what was quite a frenetic Q3.
What people don't hear, they don't miss.
Well, yes, what might not go out on the radio in Vegas will not be heard by anyone. But it was a bit of a wait for Q3 to get underway, but it was well worth the wait, I think, because it's been so difficult to really get an idea of where on earth everyone is, because Mercedes have been quick out the blocks, let's face it, from FP1, but you almost write it off straight away and go, oh, well, it's, they're good when it's a dirty track and it's cold and people aren't out straight away. We'll see the Ferraris get up to grips. Red Bull and Verstappen aren't that far behind. They'll come to it. But again and again, FP1, FP2, Hamilton topped both sessions, Russell topping the final one. And it was an absolutely magnificent lap from George Russell right at the very end, on the track where he needed to be. Flawless, well-deserved pole, and he's absolutely in the hunt for the race win on Saturday.
Oh, yes, remember, Saturday, not Sunday. Keep on telling ourselves that so we don't get it wrong. Alice, before we really get into George Russell's result today, it was a tricky session for the drivers out there. We had that stoppage, Franco Colapinto really having a massive crash, which brought out a red flag. But so tricky, the track conditions, the cold conditions, there was so much for the teams and drivers to deal with this evening.
There was, and Williams have put out a statement saying that his impact was over 50G, so that requires him to go for a medical checkup, and an impact of such magnitude means that there could be a chance he might not race tomorrow if he doesn't pass all those medical checks. He did get out the car, but what I noticed when he was walking to the medical car, was walking a bit gingerly, and I did catch a replay when you guys have left the box, and how hard he hit that concrete barrier. He actually moved the concrete blocks, the barrier, by a couple of feet, and his car was nearly on its side when they showed the slow motion. So a hard impact, and that result, that impact by him, that accident from him, was only himself to blame as he clipped the inside barrier at turn 16. But yes, tricky conditions for the drivers in terms of the evolution of the track, but also very chilly conditions. I'm sat here at the circuit with 3 coats on. I've got my woolly hat at the ready when we walk back to the hotel, because it is cold here. It's 11 degrees during the session, the air temperature, and we're used to seeing the cars out on track in 40, 50 degree track temperatures. So it's very different, and it's a tricky one to get the tyres up to temperature.
We mere mortals, Harry and I, we haven't really mastered a racing car. Well, maybe, Harry, you have, but I haven't. No, it's a no from you. No. When we say, it's so different to those hotter temperatures that we experience in other parts of the world, and now it's so cold and there's graining, what is it actually feeling like for the drivers in the car when it's such a change in conditions like this?
It almost feels like you're driving on ice. And actually, I think that's how Liam Lawson described it, and actually Max Verstappen in the first free practice session that we had yesterday, he was saying there's just no grip. And that's what it feels like, and they have to pay particular attention to warming up the tyres. The process is really important in itself, whether you've got warm conditions or cold conditions, but certainly in cold conditions, if you don't bring the tyres up to temperature before you go for that push lap, you get what's cold graining, and as soon as you start to get that, it will literally feel like you are driving on ice. You'll have no bite at the front, it will just feel horrible, and it will decrease the tyre life quite quickly, and it's very difficult to get the tyres back when you have that cold graining. So it's a real fine margin. We've actually seen quite a few drivers, Max Verstappen, Haas, have done it majority of their running so far this weekend. They've gone out and do a build. Usually see we drivers go out the box, then they do a push lap, and actually some teams are deciding that they need to do an out plus another warm lap before they then go to push.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on behind the scenes to get the drivers ready for those hot laps that we saw them do this evening. So George Russell, an absolutely brilliant performance from him. And again, Harry, really telling the team what he wanted, leading from the front, quite literally, not just on track, but also within the team, telling them, I want to be at the back when it comes to setting those final laps in Q3. And he was so right, wasn't he, to be last on the road, because the track was ramping up, and there he went and took that pole position.
Yeah, it was fine margins, wasn't it, though, when he left the pit lane? We were all thinking, oh God, has he left it just that slightly bit too late to make sure he can get over the line in time? But he did it, and we're seeing that more and more, though, from George Russell in Sao Paulo. He wanted to stay out in the race because he knew a red flag would come and they would benefit from the red flag rule where you're allowed to change your tyres. On that occasion, the team did not listen and they went in a different direction. So it's quite cutting, I think, that we're hearing on the radio, at least broadcast publicly more and more, George Russell's assertions. He knows that next year he is the number one, he is the team leader. Lewis Hamilton is gone. He'll be history at Mercedes. It'll be George Russell leading the way, and he is now starting to, I think, morph into that team leader role, because next year will be an out-and-out fight, I think, between Russell and Antonelli. Russell should win that. It wasn't all plain sailing, though, for George Russell. Did tap the wall slightly. He actually had to change front wing at some point during that session, but he stayed cool, calm and collected and was able to put in the lap right at the very end and nailed it, let's face it. And I don't think there's much more to be said on Russell.
Well,
nailed it.
Let's hear from him, because it was a great lap, and as Harry said, not without its problems. I asked George that whether he was on top of the world.
Yeah, feeling really great. It's been an amazing weekend so far. The car's been performing exceptionally well. We have to be honest, we don't quite know why that is, so we'll review after the weekend why. But I knew it was going to be that last lap in Q3 that made the difference. The track was improving so much lap after lap, and you needed to make it count.
And that's what you told the team, that's what you requested. I know you don't like to get ahead of yourself, so no champagne just yet. Do you think you can get the job done tomorrow?
In normal circumstances, yes. You know, we saw it in Brazil. You know, we had control of the race, and then suddenly a curveball was thrown with the red flag, and we lost that chance to fight for victory. We're on a street track. It's very challenging here. We got to, you know, be on our A game every single lap and be ready for another curveball to be thrown. So, as I said, if there's no safety cars, no red flags, I'm confident we can do it. But we just got to be ready for anything.
How do you actually plan for that? Like, if there's a safety car thrown, you've already discussed with the team that you are coming in, or
yeah, I mean, you got to plan to be adaptable, and you know that's probably what caught us out last week. We'd set our sights on saying if there's a safety car, we're boxing, and we didn't recognise last week. You know, marshals were pushing that car off, that caused the safety car, and we probably lost the victory because of something as simple as that. So every scenario is different. We just got to take it as it comes.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
So a great result for Mercedes on one side of the garage. We'll come on to where Lewis Hamilton finished a little later on. But I'm still troubled by the fact that they don't know where this performance is coming from each weekend to the next. And maybe you have to get to the end of the season and have a look back and sort of work out what all those good weekends, when every time the car was capable of taking pole, they took pole. Maybe you have to see what the common denominators were, Alice. Is that how it works? Or can't they be doing that research right now?
Yeah, but I think we've often seen this season that they arrive to circuits expecting to do well, then they don't, and then you've got Hamilton and George puzzled by the performance. They've been quite inconsistent, and we're not used to seeing Mercedes being this inconsistent, and they've come here a track that's, you know, majority of turn, squirt on the gas and off you go, especially down this long straight. They don't like bumpy circuits. Believe it or not, for a street circuit, this is pretty smooth. So it seems to have suited them quite well, and I think Lewis Hamilton, he was my favourite to be on pole. He was dominated, certainly the second part of qualifying. He was ahead of George Russell by 0.2, and he just didn't get it right, and he had that snap of oversteer through turn 2, and it didn't look like driver error at all. Or, sorry, it was through turn 3. Didn't look like driver error, wasn't meant to be. He's starting way out of position, but yeah, George was able to pull it out the bag.
Absolutely. When I asked Lewis Hamilton, he'll be starting from P10 on the grid for the Grand Prix, you know, what were the mistakes down to? He just simply said, me. So he'll be really, really cross with himself, I think, after that. He said that everyone else was struggling with the same issues out there, but they just did a better job than he did. So I think he found that red flag a real stoppage in his momentum. So a really difficult sort of bittersweet day for Mercedes. Behind George Russell then, or alongside him on the front row, is Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. And I think everyone was talking about Ferrari being favourites coming into this weekend. But it seems to be that when we say Ferrari are favourites, we just add Charles Leclerc to the end of that sentence. It's Ferrari and Charles Leclerc. And then wham bam, thank you ma'am, Carlos Sainz is P2. But a tricky session for him. But he's built all the performance up over the course of the weekend, getting better and better through the practice sessions. We should have almost expected him to be right up there, Harry.
Yeah, I mean, rule Carlos Sainz out at your peril. I wonder if there's a little sense of, I think I said in the coverage, often when a driver is sacked before the end of the year and it's public knowledge, it's sort of almost pressure off and they start to perform quite well again consistently. Not that Sainz has had any kind of downturn in performance all year long, but I just wonder if there's something getting towards the end of the year. His weekend in Mexico was absolutely phenomenal. Probably one of his best weekends as a Formula One driver. We're in this final stretch now, going towards the end of the year. Ferrari, we know, and the team have been very vocal about next weekend in Qatar is not going to suit them at all. So I think Sainz is got the confidence and knows that this is the time where he can maximise not only his remaining races with Ferrari from a mental approach that's serving him quite well onto on each circuit, but also he wants to see off his Ferrari career in the best way possible. He knows that they have a chance at the Constructors' Championship. They are a little bit further behind though. He's going to go for the race win, absolutely. I think Sainz is going to be quite aggressive. Just hearing him talk to, it was James Hinchcliffe just straight after the race, he's not going to be reserved and just want to bag points. He's going to have a good line down to turn one. And we saw last year, Max Verstappen was able to get his elbows out straight into turn one. The left-hander that bends around almost back on yourself forced Charles Leclerc into the runoff. He did get a penalty for that, but he was able to overcome it. All the drivers watched that from last year. They all watched the previous race to find where those lines are. That's what I expect Sainz is going to be lining up there. But he built up over the weekend. He's a engineer's dream, I think, when he's in the car as well, because he always thinks like they want him to on the pit wall. So a really intriguing front row, not the one that any of us really predicted, but that's what this track is throwing up. All sorts of
Expect the unexpected in Vegas, Harry.
Yeah, but it has just been a random weekend, though, don't you think? Like, I still think tomorrow, I'm not going to be able to really know what the order is going to be, because this circuit has just felt such like an anomaly throughout the whole season that it's really going to throw up one of the most intriguing races of the year.
A weird weekend, and it's only Friday.
Is it?
It certainly is.
Feels like, are we January yet?
Oh my goodness, it's been a long year this week. Oh, right. Well, I had a chat with Carlos Sainz just after qualifying. I asked him about the session, how tricky it was, and what he's feeling heading into the race, because there are a few unknowns.
It was very tricky. I think no one is happy with the car, with the tires. Everyone's sliding and complaining, and me too. I thought it was a sliding lap, very scrappy, but in the end you need to fight everything, all these variables, and try to put a lap together, and I think I did a pretty good job there to be just within a tenth of George, that they've been clearly much quicker all weekend.
And in terms of tomorrow, how difficult is the race going to be with a tyre management question and I guess quite a lot of unknowns going into the Grand Prix?
Too many unknowns to predict what's going to happen, and I think just have a good night's sleep, put a good start and race from there and see what happens, because graining is going to be a massive factor, degradation with the front tires, switching the hard tires on or not. No one's tried that hard tire, so an interesting day ahead.
So we've covered off your front row, George Russell on pole position alongside Carlos Sainz, and behind them, a bit of a surprise, a shock, or perhaps we should have seen it coming after their stellar performance in Sao Paulo, Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. Come on, hands up, did you see it coming?
No hands up for
No
me.
hands up.
No hands up here.
I have to paint the picture
I
for
don't
you.
think they did either, to be honest with you, Rosanna. I mean, a great result, and one way to chuck the cat amongst the pigeons. He's in there between the two Ferraris, a Ferrari sandwich, and Max Verstappen. He's got will start directly behind him on the grid. And of course, essentially, he hasn't really got anything to lose, apart from, of course, they're having that battle with Haas in the Constructors' Championship. So he'll be looking to try and get a good start. He gets on well with Carlos Sainz. Carlos congratulated him, gave him a hug down in Parc Ferme. So he'll be looking forward to try and move forward. Their race pace isn't great. They're certainly in the deep end in terms of that with those who are around them. So I think it will be tough for Pierre to stay there. But like Harry just said, who knows?
You know what, though? It is unexpected for him to be that high up. But I think Ocon got a bit done over by the red flag coming, or the yellow flag, actually, it was then. Oh, no, it was the red flag for Colapinto at the end of Q2. Ocon ended up 11th, just outside of that top 10. And the Alpines have been steadily bringing upgrades, particularly on Gasly's car, over the last few rounds. And they have been kind of under the radar, slowly getting better. Gasly's qualifying efforts he's been in the top 10 in 3 of the last 4 qualifyings. So he has started to dramatically improve. And I do think there is a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I think it's a brilliant positive story for them and to build the confidence. They were the slowest team in Bahrain, the heaviest car as well. So I do think they will drop a little bit back in the race. But actually, it's a street track. It is still difficult to overtake. Gasly's got a few aces up his sleeve. Had a good run here last year, qualified in the top 5, but did fall out of the points in the end. But let's see. I think it's a strong effort, and I don't think it's completely unrealistic, but I don't think he'll stay in the podium places.
Do you know what he was saying? Just after I'd interviewed him, he was chatting with some other people, saying how he's had such a lucky week. He's had 2 birdies in golf, which he says he never normally gets. Obviously, a nice little result on the golf course. He said he's won a card game. He's been lucky in the casino, but he says he's worried he's used all his luck up before the Grand Prix.
We'll find out, won't we?
Exactly. Well, let's hear from Pierre then. An absolutely brilliant performance from him in qualifying P3 for the French driver.
It was quite a sweaty one, like throughout the whole lap. It's challenging track because you're playing with fine margin, street track, the walls, the curbs, and we're running extremely low downforce. So every single corner you're just sliding a lot, and it was. I'm really happy because I really managed to nail the lap, put all the corners together. Crossing the line, I knew this was special, but yeah, we didn't think that we'll be able to challenge for a top 3. So when they came on the radio, it was definitely a fantastic feeling, incredible result for the team, and I think it's probably his first time I think I qualify in the top 3. So it's definitely felt special out there.
Can you put your finger on what's changed? Because last time out, everyone was saying, "Oh, it's the rain that's leveled the field."
I think it was. To be fair, Brazil was down to the conditions. I'm really pleased with Vegas because all the podiums we got as a team every time was in the wet. So we had to run the wet conditions, and we know that it sort of like levels up a bit more the car performance in these conditions. But today it was purely on pace. Like we just had the pace, so it really shows we've managed to make a step forward since Austin with the new parts. I think the team did a fantastic job in understanding in this condition. It's extremely cold, so everybody's struggling with tires, etc. And we did our job perfectly, and managed to put special lap exactly at the right time. And all together we got a fantastic result.
Podiums only from now on then, hey?
Well, I take that, I didn't expect to be in the podium in Brazil. We did it. Didn't expect to be there. We did it. So never know what's possible.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
That was Pierre Gasly, the Alpine driver, completing the top 3 in the qualifying session for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. And you might be wondering, where are our title protagonists, Max Verstappen and Lando Norris? Yeah, we've spoken so much about them in the run-up to this race weekend. But no, nowhere to be seen. P5 for Max Verstappen, behind the second Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, and behind, or as it will be on the grid, alongside Lando Norris, P6 for the McLaren driver. So the battle is there. It is just a little further back on the grid.
Yeah, it is. And I'm looking forward to seeing how Lando treats that run down into the first corner. We know Max is always elbows out, and he's going to be exactly the same, but Lando needs to get in front of Max. He needs to get a couple of positions in front of Max. So his best opportunity, of course, is going to be at the start, but we've seen how slippy and how tricky the first corner can be, particularly with these top 6 cars that will end up sitting on the grid for quite a while. And of course, track temperature is going to be low. The temperature of the tyres will drop when they sit there and they're waiting for the rest of the grid to form up. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Lando Norris treats this. Of course, he doesn't often get a great start. His starts have certainly improved this sort of half of the season, so he'll need to get a good start and maybe take some risks.
Make sure you keep one eye on what's going on between Norris and Verstappen in lap 1 tomorrow, because
You're telling us, we're telling you, you're calling all the moves, Harry.
Yes,
Make sure you keep an eye on it.
I'll try, but make sure you at home are keeping one eye if you're watching it and not listening to us, or if you're syncing up the coverage, because I just have a feeling there's gonna be some fireworks there going into turn 1. We had a lap 1 turn 1 collision last year, which kind of started at the front and resulted in a few other cars having their own separate incidents spinning round at the back. They're in a bit of a crunch zone because they got a Yuki Tsunoda right behind them, Piastri's there, Hulkenberg. That could be a little bit of a crunch zone, and all it takes for Max Verstappen at least to not win the title here is if he crashes out, Lando Norris stays in the running, then it goes to Qatar. So that is going to be quite a crucial thing. The hopes are slim for Lando Norris. Let's not beat around the bush, but it's not over till it's over. So that's going to be something to keep an eye out for.
Not until the fat lady sings, and I've done enough of that
You're
today.
loving these. No one heard you. It's fine.
Oh, dear. Luckily, no one could see me either. P5 for Max Verstappen then, and I started by asking him after the qualifying session if he felt prepared and ready for that qualifying session, because of course they've been struggling with the setup heading into qualifying.
Yeah, I felt ready, but just too slow. I mean, in general, the whole weekend we have been a bit too slow. We couldn't really get the tyres operating in the right window, and that made it very complicated, I would say. Just always feeling like something is lacking and just not gripping. So that's a bit odd. And we couldn't really get on top of that. Even now in qualifying, it was still not how I would have liked. Plus, of course, our rear wing is not the most efficient around here, but that's the price we pay, when we don't make a low downforce wing. Besides that, I was quite happy with how qualifying went. I mean, I was happy with my laps. I was having fun out there, trying to get close to the walls, try to really, make no mistakes basically in your lap on a street circuit. That's always hard, but that's P5 for you.
And tomorrow, I think the race is going to be all about tyre management, everyone's favourite. It's going to be hard work for you to stay right up at the sharp end of the grid tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, so far it's been quite bad in the long run, but hopefully with the changes that we made, it will be a bit better on the medium.
Okay. I hope you're on that podium if you get the championship. It's always a bit disappointing otherwise, isn't it?
As long as you win it, that's the most important.
True.
Champagne you can drink in many places.
Oh, I like your attitude. I like Max Verstappen's style and his attitude to champagne drinking, saying that you can drink it anywhere.
Maybe not in Saudi or
no, maybe
Qatar.
not. No, but in terms of perhaps finishing off the podium and taking the title tomorrow, I believe that would be a bit of a damp squib. But still possible. He's ahead of Lando Norris on the grid. He needs to finish ahead of him at the checkered flag, and it is a done deal. But they have been struggling, Alice. We've been talking about that rear wing. They have brought the Monza spec rear wing. Max saying this is the price we pay for not making a really low downforce wing. They've been slightly kind of nibbling at it over the course of the weekend, trying to get it in the optimum window. What does that mean for the race? Does it fare better then in race trim?
I mean, we're looking at their race pace on the medium tyre, which is what I'm expecting them to start on tomorrow, unless they desperately try with the soft. They've struggled on that medium tyre. They really have. Max said the car was undrivable, and Perez, who's down in 16th, had a shocker of a qualifying. He also said the same thing. So their race pace is, I would say, slower than the Mercedes, slower than the Ferraris, and we can chuck the McLarens in there as well. So it could be a long afternoon for Max Verstappen. But let's not rule him out, because, of course, it is Max and he'll be charging through. I'm sure we'll get, if there is an issue with his tyres, we'll get plenty of colourful radio messages from him as well.
I always look forward to that. So alongside him will be Lando Norris, his title rival, who I have to say, even on Wednesday, there we go, got it right, media day here in Vegas, sounded a little bit resigned to the fact that the championship battle is over. And actually, he was saying the battle really was lost in the first 6 races of this season, and perhaps last time out in Brazil. what chance of him hanging on to the battle and sort of revitalising it almost and taking it to Qatar? P6 wasn't really good enough, was it? If he needed to do everything right this weekend, but they've been struggling so much with these cold temperatures. And the front graining, that seems to be an issue that the McLaren and the drivers seem to be struggling with and have struggled with all year long.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think he'll look at where his teammate is as well. Piastri down in 8th. I'm not sure how much more Norris could have done under the lights in qualifying. I think he should take some fair satisfaction out of that. On paper, this isn't going to be McLaren's strongest race circuit, but he needs to keep it alive. I mean, the facts are he's got to do it he's got to outscore Verstappen by at least 3 points. That's the only way he can do it. If it ends like this tomorrow, 5th and 6th, then it goes to Verstappen, which will be a bit of a damp way to end the championship, I think. But Norris didn't have a good run here last year, crashed out during the race. I think he'll have a bit of fire in him for this last gasp at keeping the championship alive till the bitter end.
Oh, so dramatic.
Well, I'm practicing my lines for tomorrow.
Are you? And as they cross the line in 5th and 6th, there you go. If you need any help in the comms box, do shout.
We job swap.
Oh my goodness, no me. No. Let's hear from Lando Norris then. It could be a disappointing weekend for them, and also I think it's just a disappointing weekend in general from the pace of the car. Lando's starting from P6 and Oscar down in P8. But here's Norris.
I think we expect a little bit better, but I think, it's just a combination of many different things. The car balance, how we have to drive the car. If we drive at 99%, we're too slow. If you drive at 100%, you're over the limit, and it's almost impossible to just put in a nice, good lap. So, I don't know.
Long run was tricky yesterday, so I'm guessing you're expecting similar struggles in the race itself.
I mean, we'll do the best to improve on that, but I don't have the highest expectations that we can fix everything, because a lot of what we have is just the car and what we have, so
And are you at peace with what might happen tomorrow then?
Say again?
Are you at peace with what might happen tomorrow then in terms of the outcome of the race weekend?
Yeah, I think we know what to expect. We'll set the bar low and see if we can beat it.
That was Lando Norris, P6 for the McLaren driver on a difficult weekend for that team. Behind him, Yuki Tsunoda, Piastri then behind him, and then Nico Hülkenberg creeping into the top 10, and he'll start alongside Lewis Hamilton. Very difficult day for him. What looked like a very positive qualifying session in the first and second part of it, then got away from the British driver, making a mistake and unable to really set a proper time. So P10 for him. Anybody else that caught your eye? We've spoken about Franco Colapinto crashing out and causing that red flag. And it feels like really the bottom half of the grid were really struggling almost as much as the top half, but with some other issues. Alex Albon with a fuel system issue yesterday, Valtteri Bottas with a 5-place grid penalty coming his way, and Lance Stroll with an electric issue, an ERS problem. So I'm kind of not really seeing anyone jumping out at me in that second half of the grid.
I know who
Are you
Harry's going to
blind?
say. I know who Harry's going to say.
Are we not going to celebrate Zhou Guanyu in 13th place?
There we go.
Oh, sorry, let me take the sleep from my eyes. Of course. No,
Out qualifying Valtteri Bottas for I think only the second time this season. Best qualifying since the British Grand Prix. Has looked out there on track and been there.
and hang on, what's the deciding factor? Has lost his seat in F1.
Well,
What?
but to come
What?
back to my point, suddenly the pressure is off.
Exactly,
and
that's
it's
what I mean, the
performing
defining
well.
factor.
Exactly. So it's just nice to get a few words in before Andrew Benson slides into to slander me. But look, at the end of the day, in all seriousness, it's a good result for Zhou Guanyu.
Well, there we go. So I'm glad we've got that off our chests.
Perez, another bad performance, should also be said.
P16
It just
of the
doesn't
Mexican
get any
driver.
better for him, does it?
No, a very difficult day. I think he's been struggling with the tyre management, but I think everybody has been. So, disappointing for him. Well, when it comes to the Grand Prix proper, what are we expecting then? We've spoken about Max Verstappen finishing off the podium, but come on. Are we betting on a podium for the Dutch driver and to take his championship in front of everyone up high?
It's going to be impressive with how the state of his tyres when his race run in free practice 3. It's going to be very tough. But I think we're going to have fireworks all the way through the top 6.
Ooh, Harry.
I really don't know. I really, really don't know. I think Verstappen could maybe clinch a podium. I think Russell's going to win the race. RT?
I think George Russell, he's it's fighting talk from him at the moment. I think he's ready to take the opportunity. But Carlos Sainz, as you said earlier, I think he's going to give him a run for his money. But I think it's going to be exciting in whatever way it unfolds.
Let's do it.
Not quite yet. We need to probably
Let's
go
have
back
some
and
sleep
have some
first.
supper, have some sleep.
Hit the roulette wheel.
Oh, gosh.
Responsibly.
Yes, exactly. Harry Benjamin, Alice Powell, thanks so much for helping me look back at that qualifying session for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. It could be quite an exciting, eventful race. And of course, we've still got that championship title to decide as well. George Russell on pole then for Mercedes. Las Vegas Grand Prix coming your way very soon. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.